Welcome to Silver Bar Stacker, folks. I hope everybody's doing well and enjoying the start of their weekend. It's been a busy week here at SBS, and we've had a lot of new drops, a lot of new products being introduced almost on a daily or every other day basis, and so there's been a lot of stuff going on, a lot that you may have missed, and a lot of support that has been shown by this community. And so I want to just kick things off by thanking the community members who have been supporting us this past week. Really does not go unnoticed, and it really helps us be able to provide content to show you. We're in a constant mode of buying and selling here at SBS, and that's intentional, right? And so that's kind of a little bit what I wanted to talk about today, as well as maybe just break out a bunch of pieces for you to look at while we're discussing, while we're having a nice discussion. And so I wanted to kick things off by talking about collecting versus stacking. And so this is something that is a subject that is brought up a lot. We often talk about stacking versus collecting. What are you? Are you a pure stacker? Are you a pure collector? So I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think anybody is a pure stacker or a pure collector. I think when it comes down to it, we all have our own stacking and collecting strategies. And I think in addition to that, it's not that we just have our own stacking strategies. It's that we're always in a different, constantly evolving phase of changing our stacking and collecting strategy. And so I think deep down, everybody is at least a bit of a collector, but a lot of folks, most stackers, I would say, when it comes down to it, it comes down to what the price of the silver is that you pay. And so by and large, I would say vast majority of stackers care more about stacking weight than they do about collecting, a piece maybe that makes them happy, or that might have an additional layer of value because it's like in the original seal or something like that. So especially when you have to pay a hefty premium for that. It's one thing if you can go into the LCS and you come across something like this where you're able to get it for, near spot or just a little bit over spot, the same price that you would get generics for, and you just happen to come across a gem like that. That level of being able to find something like that at such a great price, I think that hunt is something that a lot of stackers live for, especially the OG stackers. When they're going into their LCS, they're always itching to find some cool obscure piece like that might come across, that might come across and be available. And so I think those days are kind of dissipating, right? I know stackers who talk about how the supply is drying up, not in the sense that the supply of silver is drying up, but the supply of quality pieces is drying up. The ability to buy stuff in larger quantities at one time is drying up. And maybe some of these more collectible pieces that you were previously able to get for near spot because they just happened to come across that junk bin, maybe these types of things aren't as easily available because those LCSs might be getting a little bit more savvy. They might be trying to flip them on eBay to make a couple extra bucks. So when it comes to collectible stuff, it's seen a weird kind of change when it comes to pricing, right? Like, just because the price of spot has been going down, that doesn't mean that all collectibles have gone down in price. Some have actually drastically decreased in price, even more so than the price of silver in some cases, right? You see some of these extremely rare bars that were selling for $2,000-$3,000 for a very small bar, and now those things are only selling for maybe $1,500, $700. So what kind of a depreciation is that? That's like a 60% depreciation compared to normal generic silver, which has only seen a depreciation of about 30% from the top, right? So you would have been better off holding generics than those super duper ultra expensive rare bars. But then in some cases, I've got some bars which I was buying regularly at like $50 a piece because I thought that was a reasonable price to pay personally as a collector, as somebody who collected that bar. And now I don't see those bars selling for less than $80. And that's not even something that we sell on the site, because that's just something that I've been collecting for my personal collection. But now it's kind of like that's almost what the market price is, not because that's what people list it for. It's because that's what people buy it for. And so like when we do competitive market analysis on our website, for example, and we're trying to price items, we don't go by the ridiculous wide range of buy it now prices that are listed on eBay. Half the people on eBay are trying to, price gouge on something, right? On something that you could get from multiple other people. And so, for example, like a Prospector round, you'll see a wide range of pricing on the Prospector rounds. And so, the market value, I know what the market value of a Prospector round is because I buy and sell Prospectors day in, day out. And so I know what people are willing to pay for a Prospector. I know what people are trying to sell Prospectors for and are doing so unsuccessfully, right? There's a market value for each piece that you hold, right? And so, some may argue like, $33 for a Prospector is too much, or $35 for a Prospector is too much, or $40 for a Prospector is too much, or $50 for a Prospector is too much. Yeah, $50 for a Prospector probably is too much because you could just easily go to anybody else and get a Prospector round for less than $50 out the door. So yeah, $50 is too much, but $30 is not too much. I would probably grab that in a second if I've got a lot of Prospectors, so I don't know if I grab it in a second for $30, but $30 is probably a better deal than you can find anywhere else. And $35 is quite a good deal actually in my opinion. But then some may look at that as like, well, a Prospector is just a generic round, and so $35, what? When price of silver is $20, that's $15 premium. That's too much for a Prospector, and I'm not paying it. I'm waiting for the price of silver to go down to 13 and the premiums to go down so that I can buy a Prospector round for 13 plus $2, $15 out the door. Sure, you can go ahead and wait for that, but I don't see that happening with Prospector rounds. And so each item that you have will have a different variation and fluctuation in price, and the more difficult and the lower mintage it is, the higher the swings both up and down will be for the pricing of that item, because it's completely illiquid. You can barely find these on the market, and so when they're available, there's only a few people who are interested in buying them, and those people, some of them might be really interested, some of them might just only passively be interested. And so if there's maybe just a couple passively interested people in a round like this thing probably not going to sell for so much. But then if you find like 2 people out there who really, really want it, then it might end up selling for a crazy amount because there's only one of them out there, and 2 people really want it super bad, right? And so that's the reason why certain collectibles end up selling and have historical sale prices for crazy amounts, because when you put them up on a public auction, and that's visible to everybody, that's kind of what will tell you the true indicator of a bar, a bar or round. And so that's why I know, for example, like I was speaking to one of my homies, and we were just talking about like, well, what's the inherent value of, like, they were making the argument that like he should be all about stacking as close to spot as possible, and I kind of agree with that. But when it comes to collecting things that you like, you have to be willing to pay a premium. You don't have to be willing to pay a premium. See, if you don't want it that bad, you can always wait, and eventually it's possible that something like it, at least, might come across the door for the price that you want to pay for it. So you don't have to ape into anything like that. But if you're collecting things that are becoming increasingly difficult to find and that are becoming increasingly sought after, right? Like an Engelhard bar, for example, that's a pretty reputable brand, has been since the brand ended, and it is still known today as probably one of the most reputable and well-recognized brands out there. And so as newer stackers kind of come in, like you got people coming in from crypto, people coming in from the stock market who are looking to invest their hard-earned money into assets, and when they see all the vintage options, they might not be as excited about a USVI ingot because that's not as recognizable of a name as, say, like a Johnson Matthey or an Engelhard. And so right now Engelhard premiums are extremely high, but at the end of the day, I know what these things sell for. And since this is a 100-ounce bar, it's very illiquid, not a huge buyer pool for this. If you put this thing on a public auction, I know what it's going to sell for. I know that this thing is going to sell for around like $2,400. I know that people are willing to pay like $2,200 to $2,400, maybe even $2,500 for this, and it should sell like hotcakes at around that price. A lot of people, though, you go on AMEX, for example, they'll list this bar at $2,800, $2,900, and some of the rarer bars they'll list at $3,500, $3,800. Those bars are listed at that price. That's not the market value of a bar like this. Right now, in the current state, people buy bars for this around $2,400, $2,300. You get what I'm saying? So there's a price that people list things for. We have some stuff listed on the website that we might only have a one-off of, right? If we listed this on the website, you would think that it's an unreasonable price. We don't even have this listed because we have so few of these that we're just not even comfortable selling those because we don't think we'll be able to replace it easily, right? So a lot of the things that you see on the website, it's something that we're willing to let go. It's something that we've got duplicates of so that we can easily replace it if needed. So things like that. So you got to understand what the market value is when you're being a buyer. You got to look at the sold price on eBay. So go to the filter. There's a little, if you go into the advanced settings, there's a little box that you can tick off, and that will allow you to look at the sold and completed listings, and that's the price that you got to go by when you kind of compare if something is a good deal, right? So right now, for example, we don't have any significant special Prospector rounds, but you know what maybe some buyers don't like take into account on the SBS website is that everything's included, the shipping's included, the tax is included, and everything like that. And so right now we had these sitting on our website, Prospector round random design, for $34.99 for quite a while, and that's the out the door pricing, and they weren't really moving much. And so, you know, we run our store a little bit differently in that the pricing is not automatically updating. We update it over time as we noticed market changes and things like that, and so we updated the pricing because it wasn't really selling much. We're not really even trying to sell too many prospectors right now because honestly, like, our cost basis was at $34.99. We were actually selling them at a loss, and not only were we selling them at a loss, but we weren't even selling any even at that price. So it's kind of like, well, why do we have them priced at a price that's going to be selling at a loss anyways, and then on top of that, no one's even buying them? And then we looked, and the price of prospectors, you know, it's gone up. It's like $35 minimum if you're trying to close on one. Then you got to pay taxes, maybe there's shipping included, and so ultimately you end up paying, you know, almost $40, right, for a prospector. And so right now our prospectors are priced at like, I think, 42 if you get the ones that are in the capsule. If you get one with a little 1 grammer, I think it's like 43 or 44 or something like that. But it's a reasonable price, but in some people's eyes, they look at that and they scoff and they're like, $45 for $40 for a prospector? No thanks. You know, I'll pass. That's a generic to me, and that's one man's opinion. You know, that's one woman's opinion. You think prospectors are generics? That's fine. I don't personally think that. Prospectors are my favorite round, and I'll tell you why that's the case. Okay, prospectors are the very first small denominational round that we started collecting, and we came from the crypto background, right? I was deep into crypto. We were very, very much into crypto. Dealt with all the scamming exchanges, all that kind of stuff. Any coin that you can think of, we were trading that crap coin. So anyways, the reason I bring that up to you is because a lot of what's going on in crypto right now is a lot of exit scamming happening, and there's a lot of, you know, the hold crew is still in full force, right? Anybody who, you know, myself included, anybody who's been into crypto, they know that you hold on for dear life. You never sell, nothing, you know, everything will eventually work out, right? Well, no, with gold and silver, everything will eventually work out because that's been proven in history. With crypto, I'm sorry to say it, it's not that I don't believe in the long-term future of crypto. Of course, there's a absolute application there. Decentralization is more than likely the way, and we're all proponents of decentralization, even as silver stackers and gold stackers, and we all come from the same purpose. The crypto people want decentralization and want no government intervention, and they want to be able to do things freely, privately. So do silver and gold stackers. So we're part of the same team. There's no denying that. And so that's the first thing. First and foremost, we're on the same team. We're trying to accomplish the same thing. But the problem is with crypto right now, there's no government regulation. And I'm not saying that you want government regulation. But what I'm saying is because there's no government regulation, what's ending up happening is that both centralized and decentralized projects, well, mostly centralized projects, they're taking advantage of that situation. The fact that it's not clear what the regulations are, they're taking advantage of that. And as soon as they get into a slightly sticky situation, or as soon as they get a little bit in over their head, trading margin like a little freaking ape that they are, and they lose a little bit of the money that they weren't supposed to use, and they weren't the funds that they weren't supposed to dip into, as soon as that happens, and as soon as they get into any sort of legal trouble, they go crying to mommy and daddy. And then what ends up happening is that the Uncle Sam comes after them. They say, okay, we submit. We're going to submit. We're going to give you everything. And they put up a little charade. And then what ends up happening is that they file bankruptcy and then they go into hiding. And what does that do? That's not going to be able to keep happening, right? What happens there is that devalues the dollar. Every time that happens, let's say there's a $6 billion project. People say, oh, that's a fake market cap. How could it get to $6 billion? That's not a fake market cap. You might think that money came out of thin air, but no, that money didn't come out of thin air. Hardworking Americans and people around the world who earned that money through hard work, they lost that. So that money, that $6 billion market cap or whatever it was that has now vanished and turned to zero, that's not just like imaginary funny money. That's unbacked US dollars now going into the hands of some scammer who used some legal loopholes to get out of the trouble that they got in because they're a child. And now that has completely hurt the US dollar, which is already unbacked since we're not on the gold standard or any sort of silver standard or any sort of standard. And so what does that mean? Well, that's not going to continue. Well, first of all, what's going to happen is that if you think you can just hodl on crypto, you're mistaken, because regulation is now coming. We foresaw this happening. The time for making a bunch of money in crypto was in an unregulated market is now over. So you cannot do that anymore. Well, you won't be able to do it for long because now regulation will come. And once regulation is in, then you will start to see the rainforest fire, which has now burnt everything to the ground in the crypto sphere. You will start to see regrowth based off of the new regulation. And so you will see some centralized projects out there who are doing great things that you could probably invest in, just like you invest in some stocks if you trust the project owners not to scam you and not to file bankruptcy. You know, you can invest in those things that are a little bit more regulated by Uncle Sam, that are looked at with a fine-tooth comb. If you're into buying regulated, centralized stocks and stuff like that you could just lose your shirt on because they're just paper stocks. If you like to buy SLV paper stocks and stuff and not hold on to the physical assets, be my guest, right? Go for it, you know. But honestly, in my mind, unless you're holding something like truly decentralized like BTC and it's in your cold storage, not sitting on an exchange, sitting in your cold storage, that's the only way to be. And you're going to have to weather the storm if the price goes down. I'm not saying the price is going to go down, but I'm just saying that it's not going to likely skyrocket up like you think it is. But who knows? That's one man's opinion. That's not financial advice, obviously. But I guess what I'm saying is that anything that's not actually fully decentralized, that's a huge risk. And especially if it's it's a non-decentralized asset that you're holding on a non-decentralized exchange, forget about it. That's 2 layers of unsafeness. So you're going to want to hold on to your physical assets. And I think what's going to happen is all this money that's bleeding out of crypto, it's got to go somewhere, right? All that money that's bleeding out of stocks, it's got to go somewhere. And especially the crypto people, right? When they buy their little shit coins, right? As they call them, they call their altcoins shit coins. When they buy their shit coins to flip them for more BTC, that's their end goal, I guess. Yeah, their end goal for investing in shit coins is not because they're promising projects, it's to flip for more BTC, which I guess is a great for society, I guess. But regardless, I'm going on a rant there. But people, what they look at when they're investing in those shit coins is that they're looking at things like the fundamentals, as they call them. They're looking at the fundamentals, and they're looking at, for example, that imaginary token supply that people come up, 21 million Bitcoins out there, okay? Very cool, very scarce. Very rare. You know how rare a Prospector round is, which is an actual physical thing that you can hold in your hand? Well, there's only 75,000 of these minted out there. 75,000 of these. So when the crypto people come from 21 million Bitcoin, they're gonna crap themselves when they see a 75,000 minted Prospector in BU condition, right? And they're gonna want to buy up monster boxes of these, is what I think. That hasn't happened yet. That hasn't happened in decades. These things are still treated like almost generics. Not quite generics now, right? Like generics, I think you get for what, 26, 27 bucks now after taxes and stuff at the best and at your best price. So a Prospector round, probably gonna have to pay like a several dollar premium over that. So maybe 34, I would say 35 is probably the best price you can get on Prospector, unless you get lucky and find one in a junk bin or something. So, you know, that's what the pricing is on this, but that fluctuates greatly because the liquidity on this is only 75,000. You got a generic round. There's probably billions of generic silver rounds out there, I would say. Billions with a B. I think it's probably more than millions, yeah. And then American Silver Eagle is in the millions, right? So an American Silver Eagle is kind of like, owning American Silver Eagle is kind of like owning a Bitcoin. Oh my gosh, Bitcoin people will hate me saying that. Owning a Prospector round is like, I don't know what to say about a Prospector round. I just love Prospector rounds. And here's a full year set. Cheers.